I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Sarah, and we're going to give you guys a little bit of an after-action report from the Guardian Long Range match that we shot this last weekend at Woody's Rifle and Hunting Club. This match was kind of a fundraiser for Guardian and for Bethany Christian Services, who help find orphans their forever home. And Gary Larson with Guardian Long Range, he has been one of the recipients of Bethany services when he was younger, and so this is kind of his way to help the shooting community give back to the community at large. And I think he did a really, really great job at it. But the Guardian Long Range match, since this is really a fundraiser match, it's not really a precision rifle series type match. It kind of has a different feel and a different vibe to it. I think you kind of experience that out there. Whereas when you go to a precision rifle series match, guys are really, really focused on their performance. They're really focused on getting as many points as they can and doing as well as they can in order to go forward in the series, to qualify for the finale, that kind of thing. And, sometimes it's not in your best interest to share all the information you have with your competitors, because it may give them just an extra couple of points that they need to trade position with you. This is not that kind of match. While any precision rifle match you go to, you're going to find shooters that are willing to help you out. This match especially, there was a great exchange of information. Guys would discuss wind calls, guys would discuss how to address the stages, and even in one instance, we were borrowing equipment to be able to better game one of the stages. So it was a really, really nice environment, and it's really a great environment for new shooters. If this was something where you'd never shot a match before, this is a great place to shoot your first match, because everybody is willing to help you try to do as well as you possibly can. Before we get into the actual stages, one big thing is the prize table there. Really, it was a good prize table. There were a good amount of prizes available, but the prize table was not run the way you would normally have a prize table run at a PRS match. It was not based on the order you finished. It was based upon a lottery. You got tickets, and the prizes were raffled off, and the order that you approached the prize table was raffled off. So basically you got a certain number of tickets with your entry fee, and you also had the option to buy more tickets to go into that raffle if you just wanted to either donate money to the cause, or if you wanted a better chance of getting a better prize. And also, one of those entry tickets went to get the raffled off. Sorry, I can't speak today. One of those tickets went for the grand prize for the raffle, which was a rifle donated from APO, and it was just a fully built out custom rifle. APO was nice enough to donate that rifle, and I'm sure that generated a whole lot of ticket sales that might otherwise have not been generated. So thanks a lot to APO for donating that rifle. Now, let's talk about the various different stages. The first stage we shot was the Lagoon Overwatch. Sarah, you want to tell them a little bit about what that stage was?
Yeah, we were lucky enough to kind of shoot most of these in order. So stage one was the Lagoon Overwatch. You started down in a shooter's box that was actually down a hill, and all of these were timed 90 seconds. So you had to run up the hill, you had to put yourself into a culvert, and you had 3 targets that you had to engage at known distances from inside the pipe, and then get out and engage them again on top of the pipe. There were, in our squad, probably 3-4 people that actually managed to engage the target 6 times and do it cleanly. You only had 10 rounds, you had 90 seconds. The yardage was 273, 293, and 405. So the goal was you had to have at least 50% of your barrel in the pipe. And, for people like me who have brakes, that was lovely to experience that full embodied percussion. You couldn't move on to the next target until you neutralized the first target. So if you didn't get the first one, you weren't going on to the second one or the third one.
So you had to stay on targets until you actually got a hit.
Right.
And these are standard flasher targets. If you've ever shot any of Woody's matches before, their PRS matches or their DM matches, they have a target that's kind of unique to their matches. And when we say a flasher target, what these are is they're a gong that is kind of hung on a hinge type mechanism, and there is a fluorescent orange flag that's hidden from view while the gong is stationary. Your challenge as a shooter is you have to hit that gong solid enough that it causes it to swing back, and when it swings back, that flag that's set at almost a right angle on the top will come up. And you have to be shooting a heavy enough caliber rifle that it's actually going to move that gong enough that they can just see a sliver of orange. If you're out there shooting 223 and you, because of the leverage on the target, if you hit it high on the target, it may not swing that target back enough for them to see the flash at all. If you're shooting heavy caliber and you hit it towards the bottom end, then it's going to swing it a whole lot more. It's going to be easier for them to see that flash. So the flasher targets add a little bit of difficulty to it because very often you would fire and you would get a hit high on the target and you would see the impact and you would hear the impact, but the rules of the game there are they will not call the impact unless they see orange. So if you hit at the top, right even with the bar, you'll still hear the bang of the steel, but you won't see the flash of the flag and you won't get any points for it. So you have to get solid hits on that gong and you have to hit it with a heavy enough rifle that it will actually activate it. Now, of course, there are some drawbacks to hitting it with too heavy a rifle, as we saw out there.
Oh, yeah, no, that was stage 2. We're not going to name names or anything, Dale, but you end up taking down 2 targets completely before your 90 seconds is even up. That was stage 2, the static steel.
But even on stage 1, we had, I believe, at least one target malfunction where somebody hit it hard enough that it hung the target up.
Kind of like an old barn door. Yeah.
And they had to go back out and reset that. So
yeah, I forgot about that.
It does happen. There's really, I think that there's a middle ground there. The nice thing is that the flasher gives you a distinct, you have to hit it a certain way to get it, and because it's an optical cue that you've hit the target, you don't have to worry about the wind kicking up. You don't have to worry about the spotter not hearing the clang of the steel because somebody was talking behind him or something else was going on. And they are shooting several stages at the same time. So there may be other targets that are getting hit that are not specifically the targets that you're engaging. So I think the flasher thing kind of works for that spot, but again, you have to have a spotter that is really on par and is really watching for that. And they did a great job down there at Woody's on actually spotting those impacts. I don't think we had any situations where somebody was saying, hey, I hit it, and the spotter didn't actually see the hit. So the Lagoon Overwatch was challenging because, as Sarah said, there were guys that were getting up there and not understanding that the rule is 50% of your barrel had to be in the tube. That usually meant if your bipod was just inside the tube, then you were going to be good to go. There was no need to cram your whole body up in there. We did have a couple of shooters do that. And the targets that we were engaging were spread out. So you did have to swing to hit different targets. And if you get too far in there, it makes it really difficult to swing that stock from side to side and engage multiple targets. The way I addressed it is I just went up there and dropped the bipod inside the tube, and I had plenty of room to swing back and forth and was able to get on my targets quickly and get through the stage.
I addressed it by him yelling, come back, you're in too far. So that's how I addressed it, and my elbows were outside of the tube. Most guys actually had their shoulders completely in, and again, they weren't able to swing, and I just can't imagine trying to be crammed up in there and not able to use it.
And this, for me, this was the first match that I actually shot the Ma-10 6.5 Creedmoor project. I know we've lagged a little bit behind on updating that, but it was fully ready to go, and I was running a US Optics LR17 on it, and the whole rig worked great throughout the entire match. The nice benefit on stages like this is since it was gas operated, I didn't have to worry about changing position or moving to operate the bolt. I did run a brass catcher on it because I really wanted to save those 6.5 Creedmoor rounds. We'll talk more about the whole brass issue at the end of this. But it allowed me to get in there, get on the trigger quickly, and since most of the targets from this match were, all the targets on this match were under 600 yards, a gas gun was really the way to go on this. Everything kind of was set up with speed in mind. We didn't have any part times over 90 seconds. So that was the Lagoon Overwatch. Shot through the tube, shot on the tube, and it was a corrugated plastic tube. So for guys shooting across the top of the tube, you just dropped your bipod into the space between the corrugations on the tube, and you could really lean in and load it and get going on it. You definitely want to make sure that you got far enough on top of it that you could kind of stabilize the back of the rifle on top of there. But it was not a really difficult stage to shoot, but it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it.
He missed the dirty look I just gave him. I did not think it was physically impossible to complete all those, but again, I don't have the experience that most of these guys have. But it was done, and it was done well by quite a few people. So it was a good stage. It was a good warm-up stage for me.
The next stage we shot after that, the stages were set up usually so that you could shoot two stages from the same area. You just either shot in a different direction or you shot off of different props. So in the same area by the lagoon over there in Woody's, we shot a stage called Advance Forward. And basically we started in a shooter's box, and we had a group of blue plastic barrels laying out. I think it was 5 barrels. We had 5 plastic barrels laying out, and we had one target set. We had a large target and a small target, but we were only engaging the left-hand target.
I've got to correct him. This happens a lot. Just give us a minute. They were the same size target. One was left, one was right. The right was a backup in case someone shot the left one down.
She says they're the same size. We had talked earlier. I think they were different sizes, but regardless, we had only one target that we had to engage. One was a backup target, and the backup target did get used because they were just steel plates on a 2x4 for this stage, and that 2x4 apparently takes some beating, and when you drill it hard with a heavy caliber, we actually had the target just go flying off and break the post. Luckily, it didn't happen on my run. It happened on one of the other shooters' runs, and they got it fixed pretty quickly and got us back up and running. That's, again, one thing about Woody's is they really try to run things like a well-oiled machine there. So when something goes down, they're really quick to get on the radio, shut everybody down, get out, get it fixed, and go. There are guys that are just staged that their sole purpose is to maintain the targets out there. So when one goes down, they hop in the truck, get out there, get it done, get back, and we get back to shooting very quickly. So that was really nice to see. But the Advance Forward, we had several plastic barrels that we had to shoot from, and you start in the shooter's box, 90-second par time again, and this one was actually unlimited round count. So again, with the gas gun, that really played to my strengths because I went up there with a 20-round magazine fully loaded, and I was running a war belt that I had 2 spare magazines on as well. So if I had a magazine malfunction, I could dump the magazine and go to a fresh magazine. I didn't so much carry extra magazines for the ammunition in them. I mainly carried the extra magazines in case I had a malfunction. With a 90-second par time, trying to get 20 rounds downrange with well-aimed shots was really, really, cutting the edge. I don't think there was any stage where I was able to get more than 10 rounds off before the time was up. So on the buzzer, you move forward to the first barrel and shot off the first barrel. As soon as you engaged your target and hit your target, you then moved to the next barrel. Again, you had to hit to advance. So you couldn't just skip it if you weren't able to get a solid position. Some of the barrels were set upright, some were set on their side, so you had to kind of adjust your position as you went along. And this was probably one of my favorite stages out of the match. The targets were again, we have one target that we're engaging, but the barrels were set closer to the target as you went. So the yardages ended up being 337, 315, 305, 292, and I believe there was one other one in there.
I want to say it was 211, but I may be wrong. We didn't write it down on this paper. So.
Right, so we've got that in the other ones. I do believe it was 211. So as you moved along, you got closer. Obviously, that made things a little bit easier. But also, if you were trying to stay within that 90-second part time, it wasn't a lazy walk. You were really pushing. So by the time you got to that last barrel, your breathing might have been hyped up a little bit. And I thought it was great because, again, shooting a gas gun, I dialed the magnification down. The farthest target was 337, so really not a difficult target. It was probably about a 2 to 3 MOA target out there, so it was really easy to get in position, dial it in quick, and get on it. And since I was running the gasser, a miss just meant target or trigger reset and then send the next one, and it was really enjoyable. What'd you think about it?
See, I struggled with this stage, and it had really nothing to do with any equipment or the stage itself. Little unknown fact about me, in February I fell and tore some tendons in my ankle. I would love to say it's an amazing story that starts with ninjas and ends with crocodiles, but the reality of it is my foot was asleep and I was running to get cinnamon rolls out of the oven. So, in reality, yeah. And the first target, you actually had to take a knee. And in my instinct to protect my bad ankle, I took the wrong knee and could not stabilize myself on my weapon, and hence wasted most of my time trying to engage the very first target. I was able to move to the second barrel with barely enough time to get myself even lined up on the target. So I personally had issues with it just because of issues that I've had. It was a great stage, and I think had I been able to position myself correctly, I may have had a little better chance. So, yeah, but it was a good stage.
So then it was a fairly straightforward, fairly simple stage. Again, other than the target malfunction where one of the targets got knocked down twice. Actually, I think both of them got knocked down and they went back up and set them back up. It ran smoothly. And again, this the way they were running it down there, they would call up who the on-deck shooter was, who was in the hole, and who was behind them. Mm-hmm. So shooters were ready to go, and our squad did a really good job of getting up there, getting in, ready to be shooting when the range was ready. And we cycled our shooters through really quickly. Mm-hmm. So it was a great, efficient process. And those of you guys out there that have been to larger matches before know nothing will irritate you more than just having to sit there to have downtime, because you've traveled a long way. Shooting days are long anyway, so if you're just sitting there doing nothing, it's incredibly irritating. Obviously, there's always a delay because you always have to wait for other shooters in your squad to shoot, but the fact that, anytime we're standing around, somebody is actually on the line shooting. That's great. There was only one part where we were actually waiting for another squad to finish up, and that really, it was later in the afternoon, and to Woody's credit, he apologized to the shooters for it and said that they'll make some changes next time to try to cycle squads through a little bit quicker so that no squad is waiting for another squad. And the usual way to do that is you just put in a couple more stages so that somebody is always on a stage and you're always shooting, because personally, I would rather have more stages, and I would rather spend the time shooting than spend the time waiting. So, you want to go ahead and tell them our next stage?
The third stage was just up the hill a little bit. It's called Behind the Wall. And it had this stair-stepped wall that kind of came down. You could shoot from either side. There are actually even holes in the middle that you could choose to shoot from. But you had to engage 5 targets. And this one was a little tricky. So you went from right to left. And you had, this one was also 211. Yardage was the first one, 231, 253, 311, and 286. So it was a little tricky because there were 5 target berms out there, but there were 5 targets, but 6 berms. So you had to actually skip one in there. The second target had a special little niche to it. It had a LaRue target that you had to knock down and then hit a flasher behind it. If you missed the flasher, you couldn't re-engage it, and so you had one shot on that flasher. So the LaRue target would stay down for 7 seconds. A lot of guys had issues with this. They'd hit the LaRue target, go to engage, and miss the flasher and accidentally fire a second shot. Or hit the LaRue target, go to engage the flasher, wait too long, and the LaRue target would come back up and they'd hit it a second time. But you got to pick which side, where you wanted to fire from. And there were penalties. So if you hit that LaRue target and you hit that flasher twice, you had a 20-point penalty. No shoot, and if you don't shoot the LaRue target, you get another 20-point penalty. You couldn't get prone. Let's see. And really, that was the same thing. You stood in the shooter's box, went when the buzzer went. I, again, struggled with this stage because I had my lovely spouse here yelling, right knee, right knee, right knee. So I would make myself sit on my left ankle, which is my sore one. And the entire 90 seconds, all I could think was, holy cow, I'm hurt. This hurts, this hurts, this hurts. I've made a great new hole in the berm, though, according to the range officers, that I was spot on where I was shooting, just happened to be not where the target was. So I didn't get any points on this stage, and frankly, I was just torqued at myself after that.
The behind the wall, it's pretty much a standard barricade stage. It was nice that you could choose which spot you shot from. They gave us a very, very tiny bit of time after they briefed the stage. Some guys took that and they ran up there and, of course, tried to figure out which of the steps was the appropriate height for them. I just kind of decided I was going to go with the shortest one because that usually works for me. If I have to be lower than what my natural body height would be, then I can usually get a stable position, versus if I have to extend and go to a higher position, I'm usually less stable. So I went ahead and decided to roll with the lower position, and I put a run and gun bag from Short Action Precision on the front of the rifle because this barricade was metal. And wood barricades, sometimes I won't run a bag on the forend, especially if I'm shooting AR type rifle. But with the metal barricade, what I found in the past is you will really get a bad reverberation off of the metal if you don't put something in there. So with metal barricades, you want to go on the old hard, soft, hard. You always want something soft between the hard rifle and the hard barricade. I also ran a pump pillow on my right arm to be able to really fill that space between my arm and my knee. Interestingly enough, when I went back and looked at the pictures of me shooting that barricade, the pump pillow really wasn't into play. I think I just bumped it aside and actually went arm on knee to be able to get the stability I needed. And it seemed to work okay. I think I dropped one target on that stage.
No, you cleaned that one.
Okay.
He cleaned that one.
So that one I actually cleaned. I thought I dropped the last target. I couldn't remember if I engaged the last target or not.
But he has me for to remember all that stuff. So
but
it's okay.
the LaRue and flasher setup was really interesting because when you got to it, you hit the LaRue, and I think they had timed it. It took about 7 seconds once the LaRue dropped before it came back up and obscured the flasher. So you had 7 seconds to get a nice clean shot off on that flasher. Again, this is where the gas gun really helped out a lot because I didn't have to run the bolt. I didn't have to make my position unstable. When I dropped the LaRue, I just came back, got a nice clean trigger reset, and then fired the shot on the flasher and was able to get it really quickly before the LaRue came up and obscured it. And once the LaRue came up, you were done. You had to move on to the next target. And they had the one no-shoot.
Don't shoot the hostage.
I was really kind of sketchy with because they had the no-shoot was on the right-hand side of the target that you had to engage. I can't remember, was the no-shoot a flasher or was it it was a black flasher, wasn't it?
Yes, the target you wanted to engage was the flasher. Then the no-shoot was a silhouette that was bright orange.
So they had a LaRue size silhouette that was set there that was the no-shoot target, and it was just to the right-hand side, and of course we had a decent left-to-right wind going. So if you didn't take an aggressive wind call on that target, then the wind would blow your bullet into the no-shoot. So it was kind of devious. Usually I will make a more conservative wind call. In this case, I made an aggressive wind call, and it worked out for me because I hit the target and did not hit the no-shoot. A lot of guys did hit the no-shoot, so we had the no-shoot go down a couple of times. But it was a really fun stage. Again, with that 90-second par time, you had to get a stable position and you had to go quickly. The ranges were not difficult, but the wind in that section of Woody's range can be a little bit funny. It's better on that side than it is on the other side of the road, but it can still be funny, and you definitely have to take it into account, even though the furthest you're shooting out is 286 or 311.
311.
311 was the furthest you're shooting. Yeah. So you still had to take wind into account, and you still had to make sure that you made a solid wind call on it. And this was where that whole cooperation thing was great, because newer shooters, less experienced shooters, we were back discussing, okay, here's what wind worked for me. This is what I'm shooting. This is what you need to look out for. And unlike a lot of matches, this one you could coach on the line. So a more experienced shooter could stand there right next to the shooter while they were going through their run and call wind for them, call where their impacts are at, call adjustments. And in many stages, the spotter would actually call for you as well. So they're on a higher power piece of glass. They could look through and tell you, hey, you're off left side, you're off left side. And then you could make the adjustment and gas on. And since that one was unlimited rounds, as long as you were under time, if you were missing, you could make the adjustment and you could sling another one.
And John was talking about how this was cooperation. I came off this, and everybody's like, well, what happened? What was going on? And I said, I was a dork back in February, hurt my ankle, and they're like, oh, well, let me show you what works. This is because I've done that, and this is where I've actually put a bag to take the pressure off my ankle, or I put it on my shin or something. So the cooperation between the shooters was amazing. It was not intimidating at all. There was joking and laughing and storytelling and just a good time. Yeah, it was very testosterone-y. Don't get me wrong. Lots and lots of men. But it was a good time, and no one looked down on you if you just totally blew a stage, because it happened to me and to other people there. I wasn't the only one blowing stages, so.
It really was a good time, and again, I've shot a lot of matches, so you go into it and you kind of know what to expect. But I think she's shot matches before, but she hasn't shot a lot of national level matches. A lot of matches where we actually have to drive out and shoot them. So I think she was a little nervous going into this on how she was going to be received. And
I was actually really nervous. I said to my husband numerous times, one, I don't want to be an embarrassment, because I have not trained on the level as these guys have. And two, I didn't want to give him any reason to be ashamed of my performance. And I think women shooter worry about that, that they're going to have some kind of disappointment from their spouse. And in honesty, it wasn't like that. There were guys, like I said, blowing stages, coming off the line going, well, that was just not right. And I think I was harder on myself than anybody there could have ever been. And not having that intimidation factor really, really helped. And just having everyone want to help. It was a good time.
Mm-hmm. And now we come to On the Water, which was the boat simulator stage, and it was the first stage where I just really, really tanked. On this one, again, we were shooting the same targets from behind the wall, so you still had the no-shoot, you still had the LaRue flasher combo, so the difficulty on the actual targets was there a little bit. But then they added difficulty with the obstacle. Now, I've talked to you guys about Boat Simulator before in previous shows and that. It's pretty much a standard at Woody's, and it's cropping up in more and more matches as well. And the basic idea behind it is it's about a 4x8 sheet of plywood with some kind of frame underneath it, and it's suspended with chains at the four corners from another frame that's anchored onto the ground. And when you get on this thing, it will swing in pretty much every direction. It's set up so it can swing in all four directions. The trick with it is when you mount the platform, especially if you're mounting the platform under time like this, You need to get on there and get in position quickly, but you have to get on there in a manner that you don't impart a ton of energy on this thing, because it will keep swinging. And not only will it swing when you get on it, every time you fire, it will swing again. So if you're shooting a heavy caliber gun, if you're shooting a gun that doesn't have a break on it, then it's going to cause issues. If you are shooting at the wrong time, then the shot will help build energy into the system. It'll put more energy into it instead of resisting it. So there are a lot of things to it, and I haven't trained on the boat simulator at all this year. I've trained on it in the past. Rock Castle usually has one set up out in Thunder Valley, so sometimes we can go out there and get on that. But this one, I approached it a little too aggressively. I got on it too quick and put a little too much swing in it. And once you got on it, you had to be totally on it. You couldn't touch the chains. You couldn't touch the ground. So you couldn't drop your feet and stabilize it between shots. So I put too much swing into it getting on it. And then I just had a really hard time getting stable, and I didn't get the timing down, because ideally you want a forward to back swing, and you want to be able to swing when you're, or fire when you're swinging forward, so that muzzle blast helps try to slow that forward swing. My timing was just off. I managed to get one target on there, and then I screwed up because I let my brain get away from me. And when I went to engage the LaRue, I popped the LaRue, dropped it. I went to engage the flasher behind it, missed with the first shot, and before I even thought to stop, I sent a second shot. So I incurred a 20-point penalty on that. So that kind of hurt me. That knocked that out, and I came off with only really getting points for one target on that stage. So could have done better on that one, but it was definitely an interesting stage. And anytime you put that level of instability in, it really takes a lot, and it takes a lot of practice to be able to shoot it well. But this was your first time shooting that kind of platform.
It was, and I'm going to tell you, I actually liked it. And people are going to probably shake their heads and wonder what in the world I'm talking about. But it forced you to slow down. It forced you to really pay attention to the mechanics and not really think about the time. I mean, I went into it thinking, I'm not going to get a single one, so let's just have fun with this. And again, the guys were coaching. They said, if you pay attention, it's not the shot or the recoil that's causing this platform to move. It's actually the cycling of the bolt. You're creating so much energy and so much movement. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do this slow. And I think I took 3 or 4 shots at the first one, and I finally got it, and I just thought, oh, praise be, how in the world did that happen? And I went to move on, and I actually accidentally skipped the second target, but it didn't matter because I didn't hit the third. So in reality, I came out with hitting one target, and I was happy. That made my day, because here is a moving platform, and I hit a target from it. So this girl's happy. That's all that mattered.
But yeah, it's one of those that anytime somebody sees the boat stage, if you shot it before, you kind of groan. But it really is interesting. Now, obviously, it doesn't really translate to what a real boat does or how a real boat works. But it definitely is an interesting stage, and it really adds a different level of difficulty from what you see on a lot of other props or a lot of other barricades that you shoot off of. So good times were had by all. After that one, what stage did we go to next?
We went to Know Your Limits. Actually,
Okay.
We had lunch, and then we went to Know Your Limits, which was way back in this backfield where we were shooting off of the roof of a truck. So you were standing in the truck bed, and there were 3 targets. Let's see, all of them were 597 yards away. The first target was 10 inches. The second target was 8 inches, and the third target was 6 inches. So you had to engage them in order. You had 90 seconds, as always. And if you hit the first one, you got 10 points. You could choose to go on to the second one, where, you know, some people revoked their man card and did not, but we won't name names again on that. And then the second target, if you engaged it on your shot, you got 40 points. So you were able to move on to the third shot, which was a total of 80 points. So if you got the whole stage, look, I'm going to have to do math on the fly. It was 130 points?
Yeah.
Woohoo! Yay!
130.
Go me! And 130 points for the whole stage. So we walk into this stage going, all right, 3 shots. And we ask the range officers, has anybody cleaned the stage? Oh, yeah, there's 8 guys. 8 guys have cleaned it so far. Well, that takes into consideration whether you're going to go for it or not. So, yeah, I didn't get the first one. Didn't expect to. I believe I was just a little low. My goal going into it is if I hit one, that was it. I was done. But I didn't expect to at this point because it was 1 shot. And, yeah, it was okay, though. I was fine with it.
Well, I went up there. The shooting platform that you were shooting off of was a truck. You had to start in the bed of the truck and then shoot across the roof of the truck. And so it was a fairly stable platform to get into, and a 10-inch target at 600 yards is still a fairly meaty target for what is basically a bench rest shooting platform. Since we knew that 8 people had already cleaned it, I knew that I was going to shoot through and go for the gold no matter what. There was no reason for me to stop because either you clean it or you don't. It wasn't going to help me much at all just to hit the first or the second one and then stop. I needed to go ahead and clean all the targets to really come away with the most points. So I jumped up there, got on the rifle. There really was hardly any wind when I fired it, I believe, and hit the first target, no problem. Went to the second one, fired at the second, and I think I just barely missed it at the bottom. So I saw it as soon as I did it, saw the ugly puff of dust instead of the impact on the steel, and knew I had goose-egged that stage. So that was the second stage that I really tanked, and that pretty much took me out of the running for any notoriety in that match, which, it happens. Sometimes we have good days, some days we don't. But just stopping at that first target and coming off with 10 points wasn't going to really help me out in any way, shape, or form in the standings for the match anyway. So that's one of the nice things about Know Your Limits stages is you really kind of have to look and say, all right, what do I need here? Can I be conservative, or do I have to go for the gold or, not end up anywhere? And again, this is a charity match. It's not for PRS points. So not that big of a deal if you tank the stage. It was a good time. It was fun. It was a very, very fast stage to run. Guys were getting up there, taking their shots, coming off. You had a 90-second par time. Very few guys actually timed out on it. You either got your misses and came off of it, or you got all the targets and got done. And quite a few guys did clean it. We had several in our squad that cleaned it. So it was a totally doable stage. You just had to take your time, and I probably should have taken a little bit more time and refined my position and my trigger pull on that shot. But, it is what it is. Once the shot's left the barrel, there's no reason to worry about it. So that was it on the Know Your Limits. And then next, I think we went up to stage 7, the In Your Valley. And this one was just shooting off a real standard cable spool that they had set up there. You started up the hill, I believe.
No, you stood right next to it.
No, we started right next to it on this one.
I'm gonna roll my eyes at you. I'm gonna roll my eyes.
You started next to it on this one. 90-second par time again. All these were 90-second par times. And on the sound of the buzzer, you dropped down, took a position on the reel, and engaged your targets. There were
5, but
5 targets, but the distances were given. I don't have the distances written down in this book, but they were fairly close. And you just engaged the targets near to far, and you had 10 points per target, unlimited round count. Fairly simple, fairly straightforward stage. If you've ever shot a spool before, you pretty much know what you got going on. I shot it with a front bag on the rifle and a pump pillow on my arm. It was a pretty simple stage.
It was, for me, it wasn't a bad stage. It was just an awkward height for me. I either needed to be on, squatting, or like on both knees. The one knee down, one knee up was not a good position for me. And I think it just has more to do with my height than anything. I was successful on the stage. The wind was vicious. The closest target was about 200 yards out, and it was the hardest one to engage because it had tucked down into this little valley, hence the name, and it was just hard. The wind was changing constantly. So when guys were saying they were holding 0.2, some other people were holding 1.2. So I mean, it was different for everybody. But there were guys who just totally blew it, big old goose egg, and then there's guys who cleaned it, who made it look like a walk in the park. But it was a good stage. I enjoyed it. You couldn't dial, you had to hold. So that was another thing some people struggled with.
Yeah. So, and I pretty much held over through the entire match. Most of the other guys that were out there, they would do a combination, most of the other guys in our squad, where they would dial an intermediate setting, say dial for the closest target, and they would hold over just the balance of the dope for the longer range targets. It's really a personal preference thing. It worked great for them. I prefer to either go whole hog one direction or the other. I either prefer to dial for each target, or I prefer just a holdover for each target. And for me, it prevents me from getting confused on my scope or confused on what I am. I just look at my arm board and I roll. So that's one other thing I didn't mention. Both of us on this ran our dope on a board on our arm, and when you're shooting multiple targets like that, it's so much easier just to have that wrist coach, they usually call them, wrist coach on your arm, and just be able to glance down and see what it is you need to hold or what you need to dial. So much nicer than having to try to mess around with paper, because all of these, you had to start in a shooter's box and move into position. None of these positions, or none of these stages allowed you to set a position and start in that position.
Right.
You had to build the position on the clock. So having that information right there on your arm where it can't blow away, where it's ready reference, that's definitely good to go. The next stage that we shot after that was Mom's Van. That was stage 5. And for this stage, we started in a shooter's box, and you had, about 20 yards to run?
It's probably a little bit further than that.
But you had to run downhill to the van. You had to climb into the van on the clock, set up a position, and then you had, again, 5 targets to engage. Now, I've shot variations of the van stage several different times there. And one thing that really makes it difficult is, since we're shooting on that same valley where the wind's all over the place, it can be high, it can be low, it can cut off in the middle of the stage. When you're inside that van, it makes it difficult to pay attention to what the wind's doing, because you're totally blocked from the wind. So you have to kind of watch downrange. You really have to pay attention to what your rounds are doing and what your impacts are doing. And in this, round count was limited to 10 rounds. Your targets were 312, 332, 342, 444, and you had another one at 444. So you had to make sure that you had a good wind call for these targets. And I believe they were all flasher targets, or did we have some that were silhouettes?
No, they were all flashers.
So again, you had to get on there. You had to get a solid hit on them to get the points. And getting in the van and getting your position built after running that with only 90 seconds, it really didn't matter that it was a 10-round limit, because I don't think there's any way that you would have gotten off more than 10 rounds accurately anyway. So being able to build that position and watch what your splash is doing when you miss, because you actually could catch dust puffs on some of these and be able to tell what the wind's doing, was really critical in this stage. And I think I dropped a couple of targets on this stage.
I'm going to say you got 3. I got 1.
I believe.
But this is my favorite stage. 1, because it's like a 1982 Chrysler. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was this old school van. And but it was the most stable. You could get your rifle in there, and you could get it on that back lip of the lift gate, which was missing. And you could push your rifle into it and get your feet behind you and push your feet against the 2 front bucket seats, and you could really be stable. A lot of guys said this was the most stable shooting position I had even one guy tell me he felt like something was way off and wrong because you weren't moving and you were there. My biggest complaint about the stage is that I cut my elbow because there was glass in the van, and then my nurse brain took over. So, but I enjoyed it. It was a good stage.
So she apparently fit in it just fine. I got in it.
I did.
And then realized that I couldn't actually lay my legs out. I shot with my legs bent and held up in a 90-degree angle because I just, where my bipod was set towards the end of the forend on that rifle, there was no way that I was stretching out in there. But the really nice thing about this stage was this again was how that cooperation and camaraderie thing worked, because the way the van was set, it was kind of parked at an angle, and the rear of the van was facing downhill a little bit. And usually when you end up with that kind of slope, you think, okay, I need to crank my bipod up in front, and because there's a time limit, you really want to get as close to setup as you can before you get on the clock. So I was thinking I need to set my bipod up a little bit more, and I was going to use a lower rear bag on it. And after talking to a couple of guys there, they're like, no, because the targets are considerably downhill from where you're at, you actually need a much taller rear bag than you think. So I went into it with the bipod completely collapsed, and actually used one of the other, not the pump pillow, our shorter pillow as my rear bag, and that allowed me to get on the targets a whole lot quicker versus being in there and goofing around with the position. And during a big match, you will sometimes get those hints from people, and sometimes people will play that a little bit closer to their vest to make you really work for those points. But again, here all that information was pretty freely shared to make sure you had the best experience that you could possibly have. And again, that was other shooters. That wasn't anybody coaching who was actually a spotter on the stage. Other shooters would come back and tell you, hey, this is what you need to do. So again, that was a pretty standard stage. It was a fairly stable position. You really didn't have to worry about that van shaking around a whole lot. I would hate to know what that thing feels like on the road, because I think it was awful. It was pretty blown out.
It was awful.
But it worked just fine for this. The trim in the back was raised up and the deck was sunk down, so you really could drive that bipod into that trim and get a really, really solid shooting position.
And they let you walk up on it before the stage started, so they kind of walked you through it from the shooter's box. There was a old shooter's box that they wanted to make sure nobody tripped over. So they kind of pointed that out, and you walked up to the van. They wouldn't let anybody climb in the van, but they let you look in there to see, hey, this is what the setup looks like. And finally, one stage that I actually fit in my size was an advantage. So he can complain about having his feet folded all day long. Some guys actually had their feet out the door. But, I enjoyed it. So.
And then we had, I believe the pole was our last stage. They've got it as the pole in here. I believe it was referred to as the stripper pole quite a few times. But it's basically a telephone pole, and there are two 2x4s that come off at about a 45-degree angle to stabilize that pole. And there are fault lines marked on the poles, and you had to shoot above the poles. So for this stage, you had the same about 20-yard run down to the pole. You had the same targets. You had the same distances to the targets. So the only difference was really how you set up in your shooting position. And again, I keep harping on the cooperation. There have been guys that have shot this before. We watched the tail end of one squad go through it while we were finishing up on a different stage, and or while we were staging for that stage. And you could run up and really, there were some interesting and creative ways to address this. But the best way that we saw was to go up and place a clamp on the post. As some guys used a squeeze clamp, other guys just used one of the hardware store, it looks like a big clothespin kind of clamp. That's actually what we used. One of the guys in our squad, Scott from Best Targets, he had one of these clamps along with him, and he'd shot this stage before, so he really knew what was going on. And they told you could use anything that would fit in your backpack or anything that you could carry with you, but your rifle actually your rifle or the bag attached to it had to touch the post. So you couldn't go up and throw a tripod down and shoot from behind the post on a tripod. You had to actually be in solid contact with the post. If your rifle came off the post and you fired a shot, even then you were disqualified. So if you tried to go high and brace against the pole itself, you still had to touch the diagonal. Mm-hmm. So what we found that worked the best is running up there with a front bag on your rifle, slap the clamp on the post, and then you could drop the rifle in, and that created a V that the rifle sat in very, very well. And again, with a rear bag on your arm, like the pump pillow, you just threw up that that shooting side knee, and you could get a really nice, stable position.
He's so full of it. There was nothing stable about this position for me. I used the clamp. I was the first one to go, thanks to the chance of being the first one called. And the issues I had were stability. I got a big old fat goose egg on this one. I was tired. It was the last stage. I was ready to be done. 10 rounds, I believe. Yes, 10 rounds only. Yep. So I knew I just had to shoot 10 bullets down there and do my best. Again, my weak ankle, I was done. I had actually people come and help me off the ground at this point because I was physically tired. And it was a hard stage. Shooting, I didn't have the ability to stabilize. I had my shooting knee actually on my tiptoe, and I still had a gap about this big between my elbow and my knee. So it was just all upper body for me, and at that point of the day, I was done. I was ready to go sit down and drink Coke.
Well, in this stage, for me, getting into the position I don't think was really that difficult. I was able to get an acceptable position. It had me a little higher than I like to be, so I had trouble getting that firing arm anchored into my firing side knee. So I was a little unstable there, but then also the wind came in and just kicked my butt. Mm-hmm. So I was having problems getting really stable, and when you have problems getting stable, it makes for problems spotting your shot when you fire. So I can't remember how many targets I got on it. Do you remember?
I don't even remember.
It was not one of my best stages, but it was still a challenging stage, and what I really liked about it was how they allowed the rules to be kind of open, so you saw some creativity in building those positions. And that's what I really like. I like not being totally limited. Now, you don't want to open it up so far that guys go out there and start stacking backpacks up and get a bench rest position. But you want to be able to have the rules open enough that guys can be creative in building their positions, because, again, that helps me learn and helps me develop as a shooter, because I watch what other guys do and think, I never would have thought of doing it that way. I never would have thought about putting a squeeze clamp in my shooting gear. But that will really be a standard piece now, so that when I can use it, and it's a very lightweight, compact item that has a whole lot of functions. So really cool there. Really neat to figure that out. That was our last stage that we shot. And that was just a matter of going back and packing the gear up and then waiting for the scores to be tabulated. And we will leave, I don't have the printout here, unfortunately, of the score rankings, but I'll leave a link down below where you guys can go check out and see how the finish wrapped up. I ended up 32 out of something like 74 shooters,
no,
I think.
because I was 74 and I wasn't last. There were 80 shooters. And I remember that because the guy who did the first stage had to run up down that hill 80 times, and I feel really sorry for him. I was 74th out of 80. I actually beat people this time, which kind of blows my mind. I did come away with the best female shooter, and I said it was because it was by default that I was the only one there with estrogen. But the match director assured me that was not the case, and that the range officer shot the day before, and my scores were actually better than theirs, which I still wonder. I don't know, Gary, really? So, again, I just want to reiterate, though, the class act of the shooters that were here. Again, the price table was a raffle. You bought tickets, and there's actually a shooter at the very end, after all the raffles had been given away. His name's Matt. Hi, Anna Grace. And he came up front and said, "Are there any new shooters here? First match ever who didn't get anything." And he had something like a hat and a bracelet. And he graciously handed over, knowing that it meant so much more to that new shooter than taking home another hat. That's what we saw at this match. It would truly just was classy, and it was a good time. It was worth the 10-hour drive for us. And the hotel with no kids was worth it too. So just saying.
So overall, it was really a great time. Gary puts on a really great match, and Woody runs a really nice facility as well. We're able to get through and get done. There weren't really any administrative hang-ups. You're always waiting at the end to get the scores tabulated, but they arranged it and they did the raffle while they were finishing up the scores. So there wasn't a ton of downtime where you were just hanging out. Shooting and moving through the different areas went really quickly and really smoothly, and I'm always happy to see that. And the really nice thing is they are always trying to improve what they have going on down there. Through the years, I've seen some hang-ups, and I've seen them really take some efforts to improve those hang-ups and to move forward. So if you get a chance to go down and shoot at Woody's, especially to shoot one of their DM matches, those are an absolute blast to shoot. And it definitely won't be the last time that we go down and shoot down there at Woody's. So Dave and Woody put on a really, really great match. That is really about it. As I said, we'll throw up a link and we will post who the top 3 shooters. Each one of the top 3 shooters got a really nice silhouette trophy supplied by Best Targets. And there were several other awards. There were top 308, top female shooter, top military law enforcement. And so it was really nice. So the finishers got trophies in the order that they finished, and then everyone else to hit the prize table, they went through on the raffle. And I thought that was a really cool way to do it for a fundraiser type match. Obviously, if it was a PRS match, or if it was something where you're really into heavy competition, then maybe that's not the coolest way to do it. But the real purpose of this match was so that the shooting community can raise funds for a great charity. And we'll leave a link down below as well so that you can go see what Bethany Christian Services is all about. And we'll leave a link to the Guardian Long Range homepage so you can check out where a Guardian match is near you. Now, this was the last Guardian match for 2015, but Gary's got a lot of good stuff planned for 2016, so make sure you check that out. And if you're a new shooter, really seek out one of these matches. It's a great opportunity for you to get in and see what the match format is like, and to really get some help from some pretty high caliber shooters. So that's about all we have for that. You have anything else on it, Sarah?
I don't think so, guys. It was a good time. It was very low pressure, high fun. Ladies, if you're wanting to, this is the place to be. I kind of threw an email to Gary, and I'm going to put the pressure on him to create a squad next year of pretty much, I don't want to say couples, but of men and their women, whether they're daughters, sisters, mothers, wives, girlfriends, whatever, so that the women can be among like shooters and feel and have that support of the squad on top of it, because you know how us girls are, we like to gossip and all that. So that way, I'm hoping it happens, and that would just kind of add a whole nother level to it.
So guys, make sure you're bringing your girls out to shoot, because we definitely need more women in the sport.
We had our own bathroom, ladies. It said women only, even though Paul Smith decided to use my bathroom without asking, but it's okay. So, but we had our own bathroom at Woody, so just, you know, a little perk there.
So, I know this has been kind of long. Thank you guys for sticking with us. And thanks to Muzzle Brake Media. They're providing some of the photos that you've seen through our little commentary here. And we'll leave a link to their Facebook page too. They've assured us they're going to put together a video and kind of get you a little bit of view into what we did out there. I apologize in advance for not actually having camera and video out there while we were shooting it, but it was actually threatening to thunderstorm the whole time we were out there, and I really didn't want to take the brand new camera and worry about getting it caked in mud and soaked before we've really had a chance to expand on its capabilities. So again, I apologize for that. But hopefully we'll be able to get you a good media fix from Muzzle Brake Media. So look forward to that. And as always, if you guys have liked this video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments for me or for Sarah, please leave them in the comment section below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. And until next time, get out and shoot. If you see that Q light in the upper right hand corner stop flashing red, and I don't catch it, let me know.
Okay.
And that fly.
You're gonna be just like Petey. I swear to God, if you jump after that fly.
No, it's gonna keep buzzing me while we're doing this, though.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Oh, that's hilarious.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.